Hello friends, welcome to Civilians IAS. Here I'm going to give you a brief description about land reforms in India. This topic is included in your General Studies Paper 3 Economic section under land reforms in India. So first of all, what is land? We know under which list the land come. Land is a state subject and a land acquisition is a subject in your concurrent list. And what is the difference between state subject and the concurrent list? These are included in our 7th schedule, under which state subject are those subject only the state government can make the laws, and those list in concurrent list where state as well as center both can make laws. So we'll move on. What is land reform? In simple terms, we can say land reform means equitable redistribution of land with the aim of increasing productivity and decreasing poverty. Now we'll move on to historical background of our land. What was the condition existed at the pre-British scenario? Traditionally in India, before the coming of British, private ownership of land was an unfamiliar idea. That means land is not owned by any private individual. It is owned collectively by the village community. Then coming on to Mughal era, what was the situation, land administration at that time? In Mughal era, a proper land revenue system was initiated by Todarmal during the reign of Akbar. What was the reform at that time? Under this system, land was properly measured, classified, and rent was fixed accordingly. Then we'll move on to British era. What was the condition at that time? When British came into power, a sea change was seen in the pattern of ownership of land in India. You might have studied in your history paper about the land ownership pattern under the British rule. That is permanent settlement, otherwise known as Zamindari system, Rayotwari system, and Mahalwari system. Three patterns of land ownership was seen during the British rule. Now you can give a brief introduction about all these systems. I will give you some description about this system. Permanent settlement or zamindari system is introduced by Lord Cornwallis in 1793. Now, this system, a class of landlords called zamindars was created who was responsible to pay a fixed rent to the government to the lands they owned. It was actually hereditary in nature. This system was a kind of exploitative in nature. Why? Because farmers was forced to increase productivity, but there was no measure for improving the technology or mechanization. So the state was only concerned with maximizing revenue with the minimum effort. Now moving on to Rayatwari system. The system was introduced in Madras and later adopted in Bombay. That means mainly in South India, concentrated mainly in South India. From the name itself, that means Rayotwari system. Rayot means farmers. Farmers are directly giving the rent to the government. There is no intermediary like middlemen or zamindars. Next, we will move on to Mahalwari system. This system was introduced by William Bentinck government. Mahalwari means village headmen were responsible for collecting the rent from the peasants. The system was introduced in UP, Northwestern Province, Punjab and parts of Central India. So, till here I have explained you what was the condition at the time of pre-British scenario, at the time of British scenario, and we will now move on to the situation at the time of independence. At the time of independence, very high land revenue existed and there was a lot of intermediaries and middlemen. I have shown you a hierarchical pyramidal structure. That means cultivator, they were at the lower section of the society. They have to pay a fixed rent to the zamindar, and zamindar in turn would give this rent to the government. These are the stakeholders: government, zamindar and the cultivator. And there is no initiative to increase its productivity. Next, there was nothing like institutional credit. That is, farmers cannot give any collateral to the bank for getting a loan because farmers are working as tenants in the big landlord's land and all, and a number of money lenders who charged a high rate of interest. That was another condition at the time of independence, and there was lack of technology. That means there was no initiative to increase its productivity through mechanization, as well as there was no new technology adopted. I will give you a simple definition about land reform. The land reform brings an institutional change that aims at changing the land relations. I have already explained you that the relation between the zamindar and the cultivator was not a balanced relation. So it is very essential to bring a reform so that there would come a balanced relation between the zamindar and the landlord, so the zamindar and the peasants. So this land reform was actually favorable to the tillers of the land, and another factor is that it also increased the average farm size of our size of cultivation. And actually, this land reforms consist of two changes. I have already explained you that the relation between the owners and actual tillers of the land has changed, and next the is to change the size of the land holdings. That means redistribute the surplus land to the landless and the tenant farmers so as to make it an economically viable unit. Now let's move on to the objectives of land reform. So I have already told you that the farmers who were working in the big landlord's land and or the zamindari's land was actually a kind of exploitative in nature. Means a high amount of rent was extracted from the farmers. So there is usually a rural poverty existed in the society. So it is very necessary to remove the rural poverty by bringing a land reform. Next, abolition of intermediaries, that is another objective of the land reform, and then redistribute this land. That means the prescribed limit was set for the land. Surplus land was redistributed among small and marginal section of the farmers. Next is redistribution of land across society, that I have already explained. And next is to bring a tenancy reform, and next point objective of this land reform is to increase agriculture productivity. That means bring some new technology and mechanization needs to be introduced, and then a proper land record need to be created, that is consolidation of land holdings and prevention of land fragmentation. Next, developing of cooperative farming, that is pooling up of the resources for the welfare of the whole society. Next, to ensure social equality, that means when the land is redistributed, economic disparity or social equality can be ensured. Next, tribal protection by ensuring that traditional land is not taken over by outsiders. Another objective is to of the land reform is also for non-agriculture purpose like development and manufacture. That means if at all there is no land record, then the conflict may arise whenever government started a new construction or infrastructure project in any land. Some another person say why may claim their right of ownership over that land. So conflict may arise, and judiciary, we all know that, is already pending with a lot of cases. So, and also 2 by 3rd of the cases in judiciary is related to the land as well. So it is very essential to bring a land reform to resolve all these issues. Here I have given a symbol diagram for the reasons behind the land reform. I have already explained all this. That means first one, to dismantle the traditional power structure, redistribute surplus agricultural land. Next, adoption of innovative technology, and promote and motivate peasants. Now we'll move on to the need for reforms. Actually, land reform is very essential because it is a precursor for infrastructure. That means if a government wish to construct any infrastructure project or like a bridge construction or railways or a road, a clear title of the land is very necessary. Otherwise, if someone claims over the ownership of that land, it may result in conflict. So a proper record need to be created. Next, litigation. That means um, a lot of time is required for clearing this land related dispute. According to Nidhi Aayog report, any land cases take around 20 years to clear, which would create undue burden for the judiciary. Next, according to World Bank also, 2 by 3 cases in this judiciary is related to land. So, so it's very essential to bring a land reform, and related to next we'll move on to related to agriculture. What is the need of this reform? Because it will bring institutional credit. That means if the surplus land is distributed among the landless farmers, then these farmers can claim that land as a in bank as a collateral, so that they would be able to get the institutional credit, which further can be used for increasing the productivity in that land. Next, land titles cannot be used, that I have already explained. Next, moving on to urbanization. If proper land titles are there, housing project could be um, partially covered. Next, black money is another reason, because if someone purchases, say Y purchases a property in the name and that is registered, Y register the property in the name of C, and this Y generate this money to purchase this property through an unknown source. That is what is called black money. And if he purchases a property in the name of C, then this black money is converted into white money. And so this, in order to curb this scenario, land reform is very essential. Now we will move on to institutional reform. First one, abolition of intermediaries. Second one, tenancy reform. Third one, transfer of ownership. Fourth, land ceiling reforms. We'll see one by one. First, we'll move on to abolition of intermediaries. I have already explained that intermediaries were established during colonial times. That means zamindars. They were responsible for collecting high rent from the peasants, and these zamindar in turn would give it to the government. So, abolition of intermediaries actually aims to give due rights to improve the livelihood and to increase productivity, and next to give due recognition to the farmers. So, there was a lot of conflict with this abolition of intermediaries act. What was that? Fundamental rights was a right to property was a fundamental right. So the abolition of intermediaries act bring a lot of issues. That means zamindar filed case for what, why, for what this zamindar filed case is that the right to property was a fundamental right at that time, which was enshrined in our constitution, and now this fundamental right was deleted by the 44th Amendment Act. Now right to property is just a legal right. Next, standing committee delayed by zamindars, because when this act was passed, most of the committees that means most of the people in standing committee were big landlords and zamindars. So they usually try to delay the act, and that means the documents delayed, faulty land records increased, and also zamindar registered land in the name of their close relative, and they claim the ownership in the name of self cultivator in that land, and these all created a heavy burden on government. Next, moving on to tenancy reform. In this, a security of tenure was created, where eviction of the farmers can be taken only in three cases: if he has not paid rent, or if he has made a permanent destruction to the land, and if this zamindar or this landlord got a permission from the revenue court. That means if he has claimed the right to self-cultivate, then only the farmer can be evicted from that land. Next reform through this Tenancy Act is that regulation of rent, then transfer of ownership. That means tiller owning the land. That means suppose a tenant farmer say Y working in the land of X for a period of 8 to 10 years. X is the owner, say, then Y owns the land of X and Y needs to pay for that land at a discounted rate. Let's move on to land ceiling reform. This reform, from the name itself, it's clear that a prescribed limit was set for individuals as well as household, say like 10 hectare or 10 acre, like that. The rest of the land was redistributed to SC and ST. But what was the result of this land ceiling? It resulted in fragmentation of the land, and this may decrease the productivity of this land also. So in order to resolve this, the idea of cooperative farming took place, where the resources, that means the pooling of resources through cooperative farming took place, so that the nearby land, that means fragmented land, would also get access to water, mechanization, etc. Suppose there is a pond at one side of the land, and let this land ceiling reform bring fragmentation of this land, and if the water is available only at one side of this land, then it would be a disadvantage for the other fragmented land. So pooling of the resources resolved this issue, and Kumarappa committee actually recommended for cooperative farming in India. This is something a prelims related topic, that means Bhutan movement. It is a social movement adopted the Gandhian principle. In this, people moved from one village to another, where 1/6 of the land of the zamindar were pooled and distributed among the landless. Here I have given some drawbacks of land reform. You can refer to this slide, and these were the positive impact of the land reform. Thank you for watching my video. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel.